Hello, I'm Lissa May, the Professor of Music Education and Director of Undergraduate Studies at Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. I'm going to talk to you today about finding the groove, rhythmic feel and style in jazz ensemble. One of the most important aspects of a successful jazz performance, rhythmic feel or groove, can be one of the most difficult things to teach. Listening to live and professional jazz performances is the very best way to learn to understand rhythm, jazz feel, and styles. However, I would like to talk about two things that will also help your students understand and perform with better groove and style. The concept of subdivision is an important tool for all musicians, but it's especially important in establishing solid rhythmic foundations when playing jazz. Various jazz styles are based on specific subdivisions, and it is essential that everyone in the jazz ensemble hear and lock into the correct subdivision. It's the drummer's responsibility to lay down the subdivisions, usually on the ride cymbal. However, everyone in the ensemble must also attend to and internalize the subdivided time. Each jazz style has a specific subdivision as its foundation. Rock tunes are based on the eighth note, while 16th notes are the underlying subdivision of funk tunes. Most Latin tunes from both the Brazilian and Afro-Cuban traditions are eighth note based. Swing, perhaps the most unfamiliar style for students, is triplet based. Hearing and internalizing the underlying triplet feel in swing tunes is critical to stylistically accurate performances that really swing. This can be especially challenging because the notation often doesn't reflect the triplet rhythm. Since swing is often the most difficult style for students to perform, I'd like to share some thoughts with you about how to teach it efficiently and effectively. First, it's important for students to understand and apply a systematic approach to breaking down rhythms at the subdivision level. The application of a counting system that includes subdivisions such as 1 and, 2 and, 3 and, 4 and can be very helpful. However, I found that using Scat syllables in combination with the systematic counting method to teach swing rhythms can greatly improve style, time feel, and precision. Scat syllables help students internalize rhythmic patterns while addressing note length and weight, two important components of jazz style. There is no one best way to translate notation into Scat syllables. However, I've developed a system that I believe works very well. Quarter notes are typically played marcato in swing style, so a quarter note with an accent or a staccato marking would be performed dot, as shown in examples 1 and 2 on the slide. So you see the quarter note with the accent and the one with the staccato marking, both are dot. Sometimes a quarter note may have both an accent and a tenuto marking, and this should be performed dot, longer but still with a space before the next note, as shown in example 3. Unlike classical articulations, short notes in jazz should end with the tongue. Don't be concerned that students will begin stopping notes with the tongue when performing classical music. Just be very clear that jazz is a different dialect and different performance practices apply. A quarter note that is marked only with a tenuto or a note value longer than a quarter note should be performed da, as shown in example 4. Single eighth notes are performed short, dit, whether marked with an accent, staccato, or unmarked. This is shown in example 5 and 6, dit. Strings of eighth notes should be swung. I like to use the syllables do, va, do, va, do, va, do to really de-emphasize the tongue. You may hear others use ba or ba instead of va, but ultimate goal is very legato eighth notes with very little to no tongue. The last eighth notes in a series should be tongued and it should be performed short, as shown in examples 7 and 8, unless it leads directly to another note. Then it should be legato. Example 7, do, va, do, dit. Example 8, va, do, dit. Before we look at some examples of rhythms from swing charts, here are some things to remember. First, unless otherwise marked, a quarter note is interpreted short, or dot. The last eighth notes in a series should be tongued, accented, and short. And finally, 2 eighth notes tied over a bar line should be interpreted just as you would interpret a quarter note, short, or dot. This can be very hard for students to do since they're used to thinking of a tied note as a long note. I am going to model these examples at a slow tempo, about quarter note equal 100, to emphasize the underlying triplet subdivision. Here is example 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Dot, do, va, do, dit, dot, va, do, dit. Now let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Dot, do, va, do, dit, dot, va, do, dit. Great. Here's example 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dot, dot, do, va, do, dot, do, va, dot, 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 dit. And let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dot, dot, do, va, do, dot, do, va, dot, 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 dit. And finally, example number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Va, do, dot, do, dit, dit. And try that one together. 2, 3, 4, 1. Va, do, dot, do, dit, dit. Great. These simple scat syllables will help you address almost any swing rhythm. The next step is to apply the scat syllables you've learned to the examples on the worksheet that accompanies this lesson. First scatting and then playing the examples on your instrument. Now you can continue your practice of scat syllables with jazz ensemble charts. You are ready to start swinging.